You are in for a real treat. This episode was originally recorded for my other podcast, but for you, it's been upgraded and transformed, and now you have the Ask the Pro show. So everything mentioned in this episode will now be found on chrisdufay.com, plus so much more, as I've designed the Ask the Pro podcast and chrisdufay.com to give you exactly what you need to grow your business success and for you to have the money, the freedom, and the happiness you want, making a bigger and better impact to the world unselfishly. So now it's time to delve straight into this episode, and I want you to lap up and enjoy every single second of it. Annemarie, a very big good morning, and thank you for coming onto the Turning Pro Academy podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here because the topics we're going to be covering today are different from what's been on the podcast so far. So I know that we've got a lot to delve into, and the listeners really going to be frothing on what you've got to give them. But before we go into that magical good stuff, Annemarie, I would love for you to tell the listener who you are and why you're so phenomenal.
Thank you, Chris. Well, my name's Annemarie Cross, and I'm small business marketing and mindset, and particularly around the money mindset for coaches and service-based business owners, and have been doing that for quite some time now. What I'm coaching other coaches and consultants in now, if I've kind of rewind back to when I first started my small business, my coaching practice, a lot of the areas that I struggled in, I'm now working through with my clients. So I don't know whether I'm so phenomenal, but thank you so much for using that terminology. I think it is really the things that I struggled with and I learned and I developed. For me, it's a great honor and a privilege to be able to support other people in that, as well. One of my core values, or what I call my inner brilliance, is to stand for people, make a stand for people who are perhaps not recognizing their own brilliance themselves, whether that be around their self-worth, their self-value, as well as standing up for them, for people who may not be able to necessarily stand up for themselves. So it could be other people, external people that are holding these people back. So my stand for is really inspiring hope, inspiring possibility, and greatness in others. So everything that I share with the world really supports them around those areas.
This is brilliant, and this is exactly why I wanted to get you on here, because you've got so many great insights. No, you really do. You've got so many great insights. So I thought actually maybe, we'll start with just the finger in the eye technique straight away. What do you think coaches are doing wrong when it comes to growing and reaping the rewards from a successful business?
Sure. Great question. There's a number of different areas. There's the practical, but then there's also the mindset piece. And I think that they go hand in hand. So let's have a look at some of the practical pieces. I think when you're looking at any business, a coaching practice, or even any other business, I think what's really important is you need to have direction. You need to have direction as far as a plan. You need to have direction as far as how am I going to get my message out there? How am I going to reach the people that I want to serve and support, and also too around who am I? What am I bringing to the table that's quite unique? What am I passionate about? And that really should be very much part of the message and the area of expertise that you want to share, with people and the people that you want to then call your ideal clients. So there's a lot of that practical stuff around that. Then there's that mindset piece, and this is kind of the psychological stuff that goes on. How might we be holding ourselves back? Is there areas, or are there areas that perhaps you haven't quite recognized as being your inner brilliance, where you shine? Is there maybe something that you're telling yourself, and through having previously been told something by someone else? The other week I was yelling at the TV, as I tend to do when someone challenges my stand for. I thought that I work a lot with women, but anyway, here with these guys, I don't know if you've ever watched that show. I can't remember the name, but we watch it all the time on Foxtel. The Deadliest Catch.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
These men that goes out in the boat. My husband and I just glued to this TV with these guys are just battling the weather on these boats and catching all these crabs. Anyway, they kind of had the story about these guys that had been brought up through their family, and these two guys were sitting there talking about their dad. and how their dad promised them that, we would build a boat together, and when the boat is finished, then you guys can take it over. And of course, they went through that process, and then all of a sudden, when they got to the end of the building stage, the dad said, "You know what? I'm keeping the boat." And here were these guys that had just their dreams had been shattered. Then the dad even said to them, "You guys will never reach your," he didn't say the word brilliance, that's my word, "but you'll never get anywhere, and you guys will always fail." And honestly, I just could not hold back. And here I am yelling at the TV. My husband's going, "Can you be quiet?" But this is the kind of thing, are there people who have in one stage in your life said to you, "You'll never amount to anything. How do you expect to be X, Y, and Z?" And so often, even though we may not realize it, it's because of this, that's really impacted our beliefs that are stopping us from stepping out, from stretching ourselves, and from really even dreaming about bigger things. And that really can stop us. And so that really is a key area that I find, and then I see so many people holding themselves back because of doubt, because of fear. Doubt can take you out. Yeah.
This is great because I love this topic, and I think it's so important, and it's kind of just breezed over by so many people and forgotten about. So maybe let's start with the external sources when it comes to it first. Obviously, surrounding yourself with the right people, the right energy, the right beliefs, I believe, is so important. What's your take on what the listener can do to better themselves with their external sources?
I think what you just said is just so very important, because, if you're working on your internal, so that the negative voices that you hear, your inner critic, all of that stuff, yet you are still surrounding yourself with people who doubt you, who perhaps even through not even their words that they say, but just their attitude, yep, can be extremely hard for you to break free from that. There may even be people in your world or in your community and in your circle, and unfortunately some of these people can be relatives, so this makes it really difficult, yeah, who are so stuck themselves that through their negative talk and their unfortunate negative, their whole outlook in life, and they do nothing else but complain and look at problems, and it really, that can really impact you. And I've had a couple of people in my extended family who you'll spend some time with them, and you kind of leave there thinking, "Oh my goodness, all my energy is really, really drained." So you need to be very careful about how often you limit yourself, the time around that, and how open you are to just hearing that conversation. Yes. Because you hang around with someone for so long, and even though you may not, you may kind of think, "Oh, well, it's not going to impact me." If you continue to associate yourself, some of that sticks. And if you have got some kind of, doubt, or there's some fear around that, and that sticks to that, then you'll find that really can impact your mindset, your beliefs. And as you know, your beliefs, they impact your thoughts and feelings. Your feelings and your thoughts, they impact your actions, and your actions impact the behavior that you take, and your actions and behavior impact your outcome. So you imagine if everything's kind of negative and always focusing on what goes wrong, you miss out on all those incredible learning opportunities to break through. And unfortunately, your outcome is going to prove your belief is true that, hey, I cannot achieve that goal. No one else in my world has, and they keep telling me that I can't. So what makes me expect that I can be any different or do any differently?
So with you, Annemarie, and I think this is something where I really took on as a very serious thing with my own life. So there was one point where we moved from Sydney to Dubai. So we moved there to start a new business, explore life, live somewhere else, enjoy new cultures, all that stuff. But one thing that I really took with me before going there was I am very seriously going to take on board into my network or into my circle or the people that I hang around with. I was really serious about, okay, I'm just going to be really choosy. And it's a selfish thing, but I don't think it's not a mean thing that it comes down to. Like, it's not like you see some people when you flick them the bird and you tell them to tell their story walking. It's not like that. it's like you just distance yourself and you put your energy towards the people that you really do want to spend time with. And having that, I got to spend time and learn from some great people. And that's something that I've continued on with. And I think a lot of people, when that first kind of like talk comes up, like, yeah, you know what, unfortunately, like we all do have family members or close friends that you might have just known forever. But sometimes it comes really down to that you have to distance yourself and you can't take those conversations on, because I think a lot of the time as well with family members, it can come down to, and I get this all the time, is unsolicited advice where they're like, oh, well, you should do like this with your business. I'm like, oh, hang on, like, hold your horses. I was like, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a split with so much more for you. Now, I know you're listening and tuning in because you know how important your health is and how this can also catapult your business. This is why I'm very happy to say that this podcast is sponsored by My Body Blends and my favorite, the superfood elixir, the powerful greens drink. Now, this is designed specially to boost energy, aids detoxification, enhances the ability to burn fat, supports healthy carbohydrate metabolism, and best of all, is voted best tasting greens drink. Now, myself and the My Body Blends team are looking for ambassadors to join, so you and your clients get the health benefits plus adding in a strong income stream for you and your business. The ambassador program, which is by application only, means you get exclusive access to sell My Body Blends products like Superfood Elixir to your clients, plus giving you the special ambassador pricing and bonuses. So once you become an ambassador, you can join the other top health and fitness players that are adding thousands to their week's income. Now, there is only a limited number of ambassadors we are taking on board, as this is a tribe leading the way together. So to apply and to join, go to mybodyblend.com/ambassador or add the checkout code that is TurningPro, all one word, when you're going to get your own superfood elixir to order. Plus, you're going to get free shipping and a bonus to save yourself over $250 instantly. So just use that coupon code TurningPro in the checkout and you can save over $250 right now, all on mybodyblend.com. It's a funny thing. We could probably talk all day on that, but I think it's very interesting with what you're saying, and it's good to see that we're both on the same page. But I guess this kind of segues across to what I was thinking next was, we have those stories that we believe about ourselves that you were touching on before. And obviously this can be created from childhood or from hanging around other people and them telling things. How does someone improve their story about themselves so they improve their belief and their mindset about themselves?
Great question. And I think one of the first things is really self-awareness, because so often we are so stuck in our patterns, whether it be patterns around thinking, whether it be patterns about behavior, whether it be just be things that we take on and believe to be true, when actual fact they're not true, or that there's opportunities to change. And often we just don't recognize that. So I think self-awareness and being aware of those patterns is to be celebrated, because once you know something and you pinpoint something, you think, you know what, I have lived this pattern for so long. Now I have got a better choice, or I'm able to make a better choice. So next time something happens to me, which is a trigger, whatever that trigger may be, I can stop. And rather than immediately go into a behavior that doesn't support me, I can then make a choice to do something differently, a behavior that is going to support me. And it's just like any habit. If you're having a habit to change your eating patterns because you want to start to feel healthier and or exercise, whatever it may be, you suddenly don't bounce out of bed and go, wahoo, exercise, all this kind of stuff. It takes time. These habits, each step continues to really strengthen that habit to the point that it becomes part of who we are. I think there are studies that are shown that it takes anywhere up to about 23 days, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a bit shorter, to create a new habit.
I think, I think something that I read not that long ago actually says it's up to 66 days.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
66 days. So that means there's going to take a time of, once you have awareness, to change that behavior. You need to really put into steps and, place into some steps that will really support you in creating different behaviors. That's just so very, very important. It's also very important to recognize that, our beliefs, and these are the beliefs that we hold near and dear. I mean, beliefs and values are things that are at our core, is to start challenging some of those beliefs. As a child, we're often, and this is around money, say for instance, money, we hear things and we observe things, how our parents or significant family members dealt with money. I mean, just recognizing, what kind of environment did we grow up with? Did we grow up with money is hard to earn? As soon as we earn it, it flies out the window again. Are we reliving those patterns? And there's two different things that will often happen around our beliefs, around money, but this can also be around other areas of our lives too. We either rebel and kind of say, you know what, I am not doing that. And so we rebel, or what we do is we take that belief on as our own to be true. But what often happens is we take it to such the opposite extreme, because if we take, for instance, my money story growing up, I grew up in a family who were very, very careful with their money. They grew up in the Second World War, and then they immigrated from Holland to New Zealand, and they had to start with pretty much nothing. And so as a child, all I wanted was a new dress. I just wanted this new dress, but never got one, a second-hand one, or you don't need a new dress. So for me, that was really, for me, and this is, as a child, we don't know any better. I kind of likened it, well, my parents don't love me, and because if they did, I would get a new dress. Now, for a man, it might have been a new truck or something, a new toy truck or something like that. But see, I grew up not recognizing that, it wasn't because my parents didn't love me, that was the way that they had just been brought up themselves in their situation. So when I became a young adult and grew, and started to work and make my own money, I went completely opposite. I rebelled. So I would spend, and then just buy dresses and jewelry and all that kind of stuff, which to the opposite extreme, that was not helpful for me either. But when I recognized that, and the negative emotions that was around that, and the needs that, why was I spending? Once I recognized that, I then could make better actions, better decisions, better choices. Does that make sense?
It makes huge amounts of sense. And complete transparency. I grew up with a family that didn't have a lot of money. And so that was something that I remember reading. And this was years ago. I remember it was it definitely would have been starting with some Tony Robbins books, with the whole mindset of everything going on. But I think it's really interesting because I remember having that rebelling thought. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents absolutely dearly. They had me when they were really young, and they have sacrificed so much for me that I just wanted, my big goals really is to make sure that I can give back to them. But I remember having that rebelling thought of, I never want to be in this situation again. I never want to put my family through this situation, that kind of stuff. And I think it's just so important how it comes about, but also seeing, as you said before, the kind of the opposite of the rebelling is you taking that story on as yourself. So how does someone rewrite that story for themselves? If they do have those blocks, what are a couple of key steps they can do?
Before I mention those, just let me backtrack and say I absolutely love my parents too. And there are many gifts and strengths that they have taught me through that. But now that I have worked through, and I'll share the steps that I went through, it's allowed me to now see it so much clearly, make better decisions and so forth, so that there's not that kind of instant rebellious, the rebellion that we do. So, everything that we are just speaking about as a young child and so forth, what happens when we are in those situations is emotions are developed, as that young child. And so what can often happen is these emotions are really, we carry them. It could be deep, 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 somewhere down, we may not recognize it from a conscious level, but we're talking all of this stuff's going on subconsciously. And just to give you an idea, sometimes you may, when we're talking about triggers, sometimes you may be in a situation and all of a sudden it's like a light switch has gone on, and all of a sudden out of nowhere it's kind of, you either get frustrated or you get angry or whatever, something happens. So this is very similar to what happens when we're talking around, say, the money situation. There is a trigger that triggers this emotion, and we go right back to where we were as a child. I like that dress, I want it, I deserve it, and that kind of thing. All that happens in the background. So I think what's really important is that we need to give that emotion voice, because somewhere we are carrying it around, and if we continue to suppress that, it's going to continue to really, inhibit us. And I know for some men and for some women, the thought of having to deal with those emotions kind of, I can just push them to the back. I can ignore them and make better decisions. Look, your emotions, some of these deep-seated emotions that was developed as a young child, they need to be expressed. One way or another, they're going to get your attention, whether it be in money, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in your work, or whatever area of life. Those negative emotions will show up in one way or another. And so it's really important to give those emotions voice. At one time or another, they were not expressed. So me as a young child saying, to my parents, I really want that new dress, and here's the reason why. I didn't know as a child, so I couldn't voice it. As an adult, I can. So not that I went up to them and, sort of complained, but it was just giving the opportunity and the space for me to express those and to recognize, okay, that was how I was felt as, as that child, and no longer to hide, to suppress, and then fill it with the emotions that you want to move forward. How do I want to start feeling, learning and developing, there's so many great resources, getting support, hiring a mentor, hiring a coach. That was just such a kind of a transformation for me as well, to support me that I did as I was learning those new habits and taking on those new mindsets and the new beliefs that I wanted to move forward with. Having a coach and accountability partner that supported me and strengthened me. So anytime little triggers did happen, I wouldn't go right back to where I was, but rather, mini steps, little steps moving forward. And that really, really helped me in changing that. Because I can be in a situation where I can be right back there, but now because I've strengthened my beliefs and I know that it has absolutely nothing to do with my self-worth, it's a decision that I can make that's more balanced and more empowering for me. Does that make sense?
That makes huge amounts of sense, Annemarie, and I think that's really, really important. And if the listener didn't kind of sink that in, rewind it and listen to it again, because that's really good stuff. And I think a lot of people need to take that on board. But also what I'm thinking is, do you think that also transfers across? Because obviously speaking with, talking, say, for coaches,
yes.
Do you think that they're underdoing themselves, especially when it comes to how much they charge? Is that belief or lack of or incorrect belief really kicking in? Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, absolutely. Studies have been done, over the last number of years. And as I said, I work a lot with women, and not that this doesn't relate to men either, but it's around their self-belief and their self-worth. For instance, there's some independent women in business studies done in 2014, and they discovered that 43% of women, they struggled with their mindset. And because of this lack of self-confidence in and around that they had, what it takes to build a successful business, which is just huge. It was around that self-confidence. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, this was back in 2012, but, some of these things are still very relevant, today, that women tended to have a greater fear of failure and a lower perception of their entrepreneurial abilities than their male business owners. Now, I'm not saying that there's some men there that don't, that don't recognize or can relate to that as well. So it really is around that self-worth and believing that they can achieve that. Because let's face it, if we don't really believe that we can achieve something, well, we're not going to achieve that, because you're not going to take the action steps, are you? You're not going to go out there and get the support. You're not going to enroll in. Why would you? Because if you've got that belief, I can't do it anyway, I mean, you just get stuck in that frustration.
No, I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, really right. Because something it was funny, comes to mind is I always, especially being from the health and fitness world, is seeing when personal trainers get asked, how much do you charge? And you see the cogs like click over in their head, and their answer, and you can just tell subconsciously. I know everyone can tell that they're going, oh, that didn't sound right. Their answer was, it was a little bit shady, it was a little bit shaky. It wasn't said with confidence. And I find it so interesting because when people answer that question like that, because their self-belief is coming through there, the person's immediately thinking, oh, I'm not too sure about this, or, oh, I could haggle with this person, or it's not a great start to it. And I find it always funny because I had someone actually, when I was just back in Sydney, someone wanted an actual consultation to go over their diet with me. And I was like, yeah, sure, it's $350 a session. And they were like, oh, wow. And the first thing they said was like, you said that really confidently. It was like, well, I know what I'm worth and I know what I can give you. So therefore, like, this is just an exchange in value going on here. And that's what you're asking for. So how do you advise your coaches so that they're obviously getting paid a premium?
Absolutely. I think what's really important to recognize that when anybody is having a conversation with a potential client, that not only are our own money mindset and our money stories at play here, there are also the stories and money mindsets of the potential client at play. So they have issues around self-belief and self-worth too. And the money aspect of things really has no relevance. And people might be thinking it has no absolute relevance. I mean, why not? You ask a woman, and maybe for a man too, well, let's speak about women first. If she sees a handbag that she absolutely loves, she will move heaven and earth, whether it be saving, extra to get that bag, because there is immense value there. Similarly for men, some men might like, I don't know, cars or something like that. They will save or do whatever they can do to get that piece of whatever it is, equipment for their car. So what we have to recognize that there is some level of value that we want to really bring to the table when we're talking about clients. Now, that potential client may not really have a level of self-value or self-worth that they are worth the $350 investment in their health and wellness. So it's our job to have that conversation, to create the space that allows them to see that, yes, I am worth it. Yes, my health, my fitness, how I'm feeling, and the results that I will achieve through having better lifestyle around health, feeling great, stepping out, whatever it may be. When we have that space and that conversation, rather than getting to what do you charge, because there's a lot of all of that mindset stuff going on, the conversation at the end of that time will be, when can we start? I absolutely want what you've just said. So that it really is the conversation, having a system around how we talk to our potential clients and how we can see that, yes, even it is possible for them to achieve whatever it is that they're speaking to you about, that's really, really, really very important. So if people are ringing you up, anyone, a coach, no matter what coach you're in, whether you're a fitness trainer, whether you're a life coach, whether you're a relationship coach, and you're starting that conversation and around what do you charge, you need to back that right up and switch it around so that you then have a system say, look, this is such a great question. May I ask you a few things first just to see that we're a really good fit? Change the consultation right then and there from focusing on price, because nothing should be focusing on price. Turn it to the client. What are they looking for? What are their goals? What have they been struggling with? When you have that conversation around that, at the end, you can then say, well, you know what, after hearing your struggles and your goals, I'm really excited because this is an area that I can support you with. So, and then you can start sharing with them, your program and the outcomes of the program, and then state the fee. And when you state your fee, your investment, stop. And then, that's
Oh, so with you, because this is something that I teach all my coaches as well. Because normally when someone asks, like, how much do you charge? And it's kind of like straight off the bat. And let's say for personal trainers, they probably get people walking up to them, say on the gym floor, and it's kind of like, oh, well, how much do you charge? They're only asking that because they don't know what else to ask.
Yes.
And then it's exactly right. You have to turn that conversation around, and really what you have to do is be like, oh, well, what results do you want first up? Do you know, you have to start delving in deep, and that's where you book a consultation to sit down and actually get really in depth into what has to happen for them. But it's also like, well, I don't know, because I don't know what you need. And I can't prescribe something to you if I don't know what you want, what's holding you back, where you want to go, and everything else. So I think that was fantastic, Annemarie. I really, really agree with that. Now, how do you believe coaches, in a nutshell, and I know because we're kind of getting close to having to wrap this up, but attracting new clients, in a nutshell, Annemarie, what are some key strategies?
Great question. I think one of the key things that often get coaches stuck in attracting ideal clients is not being totally clear on who their ideal client is. And what I mean by that is, you might be a fitness coach. Now, there are so many different facets of fitness coaching that it's just, it's too broad. So you really do you specialize in working with mothers who have just had babies and they want to return to their, their former self before they had their baby? Do you work with, people who are wanting to train for an event or something coming up? There are so many different things that when we really hone into who is your ideal client, it is going to impact your message. How, the articles that you write, the videos that you might share, the expertise that you continue to really showcase online, offline in your conversations, the programs that you put together. So that is first and foremost. You need to be so clear and get down to the fact, what are they looking for? What's the language they use? What are they complaining about? What are the goals that they want to achieve? And you almost know your ideal client inside out. You need to. Secondly, then too, you need to be very clear on who you are. There may be 5 different coaches that this particular ideal client can support, yet they decide to hire you because there's something about your style, your approach, really how the experience that you create. And so you want to be really clear about that, because often that will be what separates you from all of the other coaches that can support that ideal client. Then you have to have a system by where you continue to generate leads for yourself. And we call this your irresistible signature giveaway. What is something that your ideal client can get straight away? They can get a win, but by getting that irresistible signature giveaway, there is an email that they give you or their contact details to get on the list. You need to consistently be building your list, which is a community of people who will continue to get to know, like, and trust you. Because sometimes someone may have heard about you. They're not yet ready to make that purchase decision or saying yes. But as they're hearing more from you and getting your newsletters or whatever it is that, you're continuing to get your marketing message out there, they're getting to know, like, and trust you more and more. And we know that those are so key. You have to have a signature program. So many coaches may, if they're asked, how can I work with you? Well, we have a number of different sessions, and if it's a fitness coach, we'll do this and we'll do that, and we'll meet X amount of times. That's really working around on that, the how, the features of your program. You really want to have a title of the program that really is benefit driven, so that it really showcases, I want that. That program title really has to spark that interest. But really focusing on the results. What are the outcomes that your clients will achieve? That's really, really very important. So often we don't have a signature program, and one that's really focused on outcomes. And I think being really clear and being confident in having that potential sales conversation with that client, with that potential client, I think that is often one of the key things that needs to really have that development, because you can have all of the other things in place. You have people that are approaching you, but if you're not confident and comfortable in having a sales conversation with someone, you're almost going to turn people away, because either you're not going to be confident when you state the price, and that kind of lack of confidence is going to come through to to your potential client, am I really going to? So that's really very important. And they're very simple things to put in place, yet, often it's the simplest things that have the most powerful impact. And I think that is a key area that I know a lot of service-based business people struggle with. And it's one that when they work through, they can see an incredible turnaround and transformation in their business. And then you've got to work it. You can have all of these action steps in place, but if you're not working it, if you're not implementing it, if you're not doing it, then of course it can just be a dream and lots of great systems which are not being worked. It's kind of like if you look at exercise, there's the equipment, there's the plan, but if you don't get your backside onto that bike and start pedaling, it's not going to do it for you.
No,
so.
It's great, Annemarie. And I definitely think we're singing from the same hymn sheet, because that first point as well, it was great because you brought up, you have to know who that market is that you want to be going for and what's so unique about yourself. And I kind of relate it back to, you want to be magnetic towards the right people and repulsive towards the wrong people. And it was a great example you used. Like if your market is postnatal women, then you want to be absolutely magnetic with everything that you do. So you are magnetic towards postnatal women. But then that means you're automatically going to be repulsive to, say, 20-year-old bodybuilders. And then vice versa, which is a good thing. You never want to try and please everybody. But it was great points that you brought up, Annemarie. I really appreciate that. We just hit that out of the park. I'm really, really stoked with that. Right, before I let you go, Annemarie, how does the listener learn more about you? And I know you've got some great things that you're giving away, especially with the business success series you've got for coaches. How do people get their hands on that?
Easy. All they need to do is go to Annemarie.com, ANNEMARIECROSS.com. Lots of great articles covering what we spoke about today, as well as, of course, the Biz Success Series, which is a free training program that covers a lot of what we talked about, but goes in a lot more depth around key foundations people have to put into their business if they want to really take their coaching business to the next level.
Awesome. Excellent. Annemarie, absolutely huge thanks for you coming onto the Turning Pro Academy podcast. I know we're going to be talking a lot more after this because we think very much alike. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to say a big thanks from the listener.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, Chris.
So now it's time for you to click on over to chrisdufay.com. That's chrisdufey.com to get all the guides and show notes. And if you are wanting the workshops where I walk you through how to build your online business, click on over to chrisdufay.com/start here. This is where I can give you the exact training guides and the workshops for exactly where you're at and the answers that you need. Now, every Friday I'm coming back to you with a new episode. So be sure to subscribe, and if you haven't already, you're going to be getting the world's best insights, the advice and the answers to give you the business, the money, the freedom and the success and happiness that you want. And I want to give you a huge muchas gracias for being here with me. And as always, get in touch with me via the site or via social, as Ask the Pro is about me giving you the answers that you need. So ask away.